What was your rationale for going local, going statewide?
Yes, sir.
I mean, because I remember you said that, you know, it wasn't going to work, you know.
A couple things. One, but these limitations on where the network is required is to be in.
Yeah.
And so now. One station.
Yeah, a bit more.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Transportation Technical Coordinating Committee. I want to welcome everyone here today. Andy, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you all for joining us. Looks like we got a good crowd online in particular. So let's start with Bullitt County.
Keith Griffey here from Bullitt.
City of Charlestown.
Here.
Thank you. City of Jeffersontown.
Here.
City of Jeffersonville.
Here.
Andy. City
Here.
of Mount Washington.
Mount Washington.
Mayor. City of New Albany. City of Shepherdsville. City of St. Matthews. Here. You. Clark County. Boyd County. IDEM. About NDOT.
Taylor Heron with NDOT.
Taylor, I see Robin, I think. Where'd you go, Robin? There you are. Hi, Robin. Kentucky DAQ, I don't believe is here. How about KYTC?
Jason Solano, KYTC.
Jason?
You don't go here.
Isidro? KYTC District 5.
Come on.
Tom? Am I missing anybody? Hey, Tracy, thought I'd be missing somebody. Skip is certainly here. How about APCD, Little Metro Air Pollution Control District?
Here I am. Hi.
There you are. Little Metro Economic Development. Metro Planning and Design. Metro Public Works.
Amanda Dethridge here from Public Works.
Amanda. Regional Airport Authority. Riverport Authority. Gail. Oldham County, there's one, there's two.
Jim Urban.
Jim Sim. Hey, Jim. All right.
We're on the other side.
Port of Indiana. TARC Accessibility Advisory Council. Allie, let's see Allie today. Town of Clarksville.
Mike Huff.
Mike, thanks for joining us. How about TARC?
Ida Kopic.
Hi, Anita. All right, so let's go back to City of New Albany. See Larry's name. Larry, there?
Yeah, sorry, couldn't get it to unmute.
Hi, Larry. And then who else would join us?
Brian Dixon.
Brian Dixon, Clark County.
I'm here.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for joining us. Great crowd. I'll do the numbers while somebody's presenting today. This could be pretty close to the record. On the advisory members, let's see, are there any advisory members in the room? I think I saw Tanya. Tanya, are you there? There's so many people there. Yeah, there you are.
Hello.
Hello.
Federal Highway Administration, Kentucky Division.
Thank you for joining us. Are there any other advisory members on the line? All right. Thank you all for joining us. It means a lot that so many people show up and attend this meeting. So we have 4 home times, probably 3. So good news.
Thank you, Andy. Next item on the agenda is the January 2024 TTC city minutes. Everyone should have received these in their packets. If there's any corrections or additions, please speak up. If not, I entertain a motion for passage.
So
I'll make that motion.
Second. That's right. The Jim's.
And second, Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand, opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the Transportation Policy Committee report, Andy.
Yes, so the TPC met most recently on Thursday, January 25th. We had a good meeting. Some of the highlights included, we had a great presentation from the Louisville Regional Airport Authority. Megan Tobin from the Airport Authority came and gave a 15-minute presentation. That was I thought it was pretty good. I think the group did as well. What did they say? I think one of the notable things was there was a period of time recently where they were the fastest growing airport in the country by some metric, and that was good to hear. All sorts of good things going on there, both on the passenger side and on the freight side, which is always been a powerhouse there, of course, for the last few decades. We nominated and approved our TPC officers, our chairman and our vice chairman. That's going to be Mayor Byron Chapman is going to be our chairman this year. Mayor Middletown, who serves on the TPC representing the Jefferson County League of Cities. And then our vice chairman is Mr. Keith Griffey from Bull County. So appreciate Mayor Chapman and Keith stepping up and volunteering for that. They approved Mr. Meunier and Ms. Kopik as our TTCC chair and vice chair for this year. We did a brief announcement about our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, but I'll take this opportunity to note that just earlier this week, the staff had a kickoff meeting with our consultants, HDR, Palmer Engineering, and Taylor Shifter Williams. And so I think that was a really productive meeting. They're eager to get going. We're eager to get going. So at some point in the next period of weeks or months, there will be the first time of everybody coming back together and meeting with the group, with the consultants about the individual plans for J-Town, for St. Matthews, for Charlestown, et cetera, for all the jurisdictions that are part of this. So good news to report there that we're underway and well underway there. Notable, and I know we don't talk usually about the operations funding of the MPO at TTCC, but I think I will note it here. In the other business of that meeting, I talked about the events of the KIPTA Board of Directors meeting that followed. At that Board of Directors meeting in January 25th, KIPTA staff presented a presentation on the changes to our local dues. Local dues are the dues that local governments pay into KIPTA. The vast majority of those local dues that come into the entire agency go to fund or go to match the federal planning funds, okay? And so those dues have not been increased since 1993 for the 1994 budget. So for the first time in 31 years, were those proposed to be increased. So I appreciate everybody's support on that and the conversations we had leading up to that. But that is a big deal for us, and I appreciate everybody's assistance on that. And you should be hearing from myself, Jared Haley, or Frieda Winkfield Shaw, our CFO, about that before too long. So I'll conclude with that, but happy to answer any questions about any of those things.
Thank you, Andy. Is there any further questions for Andy? Seeing that, next item on the agenda is the public comment period. This is an opportunity for any interested party to address this committee. Is there anyone online or in the room that want to address this committee? If not, I'll turn it over to Greg then to update us on any comments he has otherwise.
Nope, did not receive any comments prior to the meeting. I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A, so if we get anything, I'll bring it up on the business.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes, sir.
Next item on the agenda is the state highway plan. Andy?
Yes, today is a guest speaker for you all. I think we'll have something that all of you will be interested in, especially on the Kentucky side. We're in the period of time where we're between the time of the KYTCs, or technically the governor's recommended highway plan that was produced over the period of last year or so through the shift process and through other means. That plan has been submitted, and now it's up to the General Assembly to do their work, or whatever you will. Jason will correct me if I'm wrong on how we categorize that. But Jason Swalla, Deputy State Highway Engineer from KYTC, is here on the line, and he's going to give a bit of a talk about the ongoing state highway plan efforts. Jason, over to you.
Sorry about that. Can you all hear me and see me?
I'm clear.
Yes, sir.
And are you able to see my slide here?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Well, again, Andy, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak, and apologies that I wasn't able to appear in person. Really good to see everybody today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the recommended highway plan. As Andy mentioned, the recommended plan has been submitted to the General Assembly and is currently going through the legislative process. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what is contained in the plan and a little bit about how the cabinet developed it. And so, and a lot of these things, if you've had the opportunity to look through the highway plan, the first part of the recommended highway plan is the narrative. And there's a lot of these things that if you've had a chance to glance through the narrative that might look familiar, but the narrative is always a great place to go to kind of learn about what it is that's happening in the plan and some of the factors that affected that. And so just to kind of open us up a little bit, as we develop the recommended highway plan, just like anything else that we do at the Transportation Cabinet, our mission and our vision and what it is that we're actually trying to deliver for the Commonwealth of Kentucky is always important. So you'll see over here on the right the things that KYTC values. And then our transportation mission is down there to the lower right. And I think it's important that when you think about the different types of projects that we do and the different things that go into the highway plan, that there's different reasons for doing different types of work. And there's a mixture of work in the highway plan, and we'll talk about some of that. And but realistically, we're trying to provide safe, efficient, environmentally sound, and fiscally responsible travel opportunities for folks. And that's not just for vehicular operators, that's for all users of our transportation system, and looking to do that in a way that delivers economic opportunity and ultimately enhances quality of life in Kentucky. And I think as you look at transportation and what it is the effects of our projects are, that those are the critical goals that we're trying to meet, not only with each project, but programmatically as well. And so talk just a little bit about the things that go into the creation of the highway plan. And Andy mentioned the shift process, which is a critical role. And just want to thank everybody here today, because I know that this committee played a vital role in providing KIPTA's recommendations to us and going through this process. And so from a public involvement standpoint, that's critical. And so if you kind of look down here on the left, these are the different things that go into the highway plan creation process. And so you think about all of these different things as factors. You have KYTC's vision that we kind of covered earlier. Projects that are already started and underway and moving their way through the process. The shift process and all of the things that we get from not only from the MPO, but all of the highway districts and legislators and local officials through that process as well. The pavement prioritization and the bridge prioritization process. There's a lot of asset management activities within the highway plan, and we'll cover those in just a second. Z-Various is our, kind of the items within the highway plan that allow us to address needs that we know that we have, but that have not yet been fully identified. There's things back there like the funding of school turn lanes, for instance, or lots of different things, ITS activities, transportation systems management operations activities, these sorts of things. And then, obviously, every time that we look at projects or a portfolio of projects, we have the state and federal funding constraints and opportunities that play in a factor in that as well. And so, all of those things kind of culminate in the cabinet working with the governor's office to develop this governor's recommended highway plan. And so, the rest of the process, as Andy alluded to, the legislature is going through now and looking at this plan as well as other factors that they consider, and they're looking at things. They're asking for estimates. I'm sure that they're talking to the local officials and various other things as well. And so, they're going through the legislative process, and at the end of that process, they will enact a highway plan into law. And then that'll go through the rest of the legislative process, and then eventually we will have a fully enacted highway plan, which will be our roadmap for the next several years. And one thing I do want to mention, this you might have heard the highway plan referred to before as the 6-year plan, and the highway plan does include items for 6 years. However, due to the way that the funding allocation process works and things, the General Assembly only allocates funds to the first 2 years of the highway plan, and so those are the activities that are able to be worked on as we move forward in that plan. And so, as we look at the 2024 recommended highway plan, 3 key areas, maintaining existing roads and bridges, asset management is very important. And in fact, about 40% of the available project dollars that are anticipated within the highway plan are looking or are focused on those types of asset management projects, advancing capital projects to construction. And as we talk about here, not only in this committee, but in other committees of KIPTA as well, we are looking not only for projects to be developed, but obviously to advance them to construction such that they're out there helping folks. And then fulfilling past commitments while advancing ongoing initiatives. And so, as I mentioned, one of those inputs is where are the projects that are already started, and where are they in the pipeline, and how are they moving through the process. And so this slide here kind of encapsulates a little bit about that first category of projects that I talked about earlier, the asset management projects. And so within the recommended highway plan, and in last biennium's enacted plan, there's a separation now between the asset management or the bridges and pavement projects and the capital improvement projects. And so those have been separated out for ease of use and to be able to tell one project type from another. But as you look at the asset management process, and that leads into the development of that portion of the plan, we look at what is the performance of the existing road and bridge network, and how do we best optimize investments to balance our near-term as well as long-term needs going into each biennium. And so, as we look at that, the chart here in the middle kind of explains that there's various different things that we can do to affect the performance of our assets. And so, there's reactive maintenance type of treatments and things like that, and preservation treatments. So this is keeping things that are in good condition instead of allowing them to lapse into poor condition. Rehabilitation of a roadway or a bridge might be anything from an overlay to a kind of a major superstructure or deck replacement on a bridge. And then reconstruction is just as it sounds like, you take the asset and you completely reconstruct it. And so just for context, over on the right are some statistics that just kind of explain what the network in Kentucky looks like. 63,000 lane miles of pavement and 14,000 bridges. That averages out to be roughly the 7th largest system in the nation that is maintained by a state. And there's a lot that goes into maintaining all of those assets, but we want to ensure, because those assets, if you had to replace them, it's basically a $53 billion asset that is being managed out there, all of the bridges and pavements. And so, ensuring that we're maintaining those assets in a state of good repair is really, really important, not only just from a quality of ride standpoint, but from a health and safety and economic vitality standpoint as well. And so everybody in this room, I would expect to be very familiar with the capacity improvement side of the plan. But as we go through and we look at that, shift is one of the critical things that we look at as we are evaluating the opportunity for new items within the highway plan. And so the shift process, scores things, the scoring component scores things on these 7 factors: safety, economic growth, congestion, benefit cost, asset management. And so basically that means that, if a project would improve an asset that would otherwise have to be, invested in to keep it in a state of good repair, there's a portion, there's a little score bump that it gets from that. Resilience and criticality, and then non-motorized mobility. And remember that at the beginning I was talking about, safe and efficient travel, not only for vehicular users, but for all users. And so that non-motorized mobility piece is absolutely critical. And so within the recommended highway plan, there's anticipated funding levels up on the screen now, basically 2025 through 2030. And so the federal program, the federal formula program, is anticipated to be just over $1 billion in Kentucky over that time period. There's required dollars for state match to match that federal program, which are estimated at approximately $234 million a year above there. And then there's funding for state priority projects, the non-federal program ranging in the 6 years from 140 to 190 million anticipated funding levels. And then required local match for projects is included in there as well. And, giving, from a range of from 1.4 billion roughly to just over 1.5 billion roughly. And so, and while that's a robust program, we all know that there are a lot of needs that have been identified out there on the system. And so as we look at those types of things, we also recognize that there's opportunities beyond just the formula program and the monies that are collected both for the federal formula program and from the state sources, and these robust federal grant programs. And so there's all types of federal grant programs. I heard Andy mention an update on the Safe Streets for All grant that was recently awarded in the KIPTA area. And Louisville Metro government has been very successful in obtaining those Safe Streets for All funds, and that's a great thing, because that's actually something that the Transportation Cabinet is an eligible applicant for. And so, as we look at these different federal grant programs, we're not only looking at things that are for, quote, the Transportation Cabinet to own and administer, but also looking for partnership opportunities with our local governments as well. And so, some of these federal grant programs are, for different types of things. Infra is focused on freight corridors and things like that. Mega is for extremely large projects. And I'm going to talk about Kentucky's mega project portfolio here in just a minute. The Protect program is for resiliency items, ensuring that, our infrastructure is able to withstand things like weather events. Over the last several years, there's been historic flooding in eastern Kentucky and unfortunate devastation, not only from those floods, but also in western Kentucky from the tornadoes. And so, the Protect and that resiliency piece is important. Funds that are particularly set aside for rural communities and rural initiatives, electric vehicle charging, all of these different types of things. And so there's lots of opportunity out there for the cabinet and for other units of government to be able to go out there and find and apply for additional funds to meet what would otherwise be unfunded priorities. And really excited to say that there's been quite a bit of success throughout Kentucky, not only by KYTC, but by local governments, ads and MPOs as well. And so, kind of looking at that, one of the other things that I wanted to mention is that included within the highway plan and discussed at some length in the narrative are Kentucky's mega projects that are currently being undertaken. The Brent Spence Bridge Corridor, Brent Spence Companion Bridge Project, which received a federal grant last year of approximately $1.6 billion in partnership, KYTC in Ohio, for the delivery of that project. The Mountain Parkway expansion is something that is looked at within there, and the completion of that work all the way from Salyersville to Prestonsburg. And then additionally, the I-69 Ohio River Crossing project connecting Kentucky and Indiana, and eventually that critical link of I-69 all the way through the United States. And so quite a bit of excitement on those projects. And as we look at those projects, they're within the governor's recommended budget. There was money not only within the highway plan, but also general funds looked at to support the delivery of these three projects as well. And so all of those projects end up culminating in construction awards. And we do various things. I mean, obviously we do planning studies and things that aren't necessarily construction related, but as we move throughout the project development process, we are ultimately doing that not just to develop a set of plans, but to be able to get these projects out there and constructed to the benefit of the citizens. And so this chart just kind of explains over the last since 1990 what construction awards have looked like year over year here in Kentucky. And last year in 2023, 652 projects were let at approximately $1.16 billion total value. And so, as we look at the highway plan and look at the opportunities presented in there, obviously advancing those projects, that are already or getting ready to start in the later phases of project development, and advancing those to construction and getting them actually built and out there and helping folks is really important. A few other things, nearly 200 guardrail projects within the highway plan, within the recommended highway plan, excuse me, at just over an estimate of $14 million, which would result in the installation of about 65 miles of guardrail on the safety side. And a lot of that's in eastern Kentucky, but they are spread around the state as well. And one other thing of particular interest to locals, and this isn't necessarily from the highway plan perspective, but a project or a program has been proposed, which would do $50 million over the biennium to help repair local bridges. And so that's another program that's being evaluated by the General Assembly as a part of what was in the governor's budget to help repair local bridges. And so as we talk about all of these things, there's always lots of opportunity. And as the General Assembly goes through their work, there's always questions back and forth. And then eventually we get to the enacted plan, and we're able to move forward and work on project delivery throughout the next couple of years. So with that, that's a general overview of the 2024 recommended plan. And Andy, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take any.
Thanks, Jason. Any questions for Jason about the highway plan?
It's right online.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is Amendment 5 to the fiscal year 23-26 Transportation Improvement Plan Program and the Kentucky and the 2015 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Chris?
Thank you. I have a presentation for y'all. Okay, so we're at Amendment 5 right now. And I think that if anyone wants to follow along, we've got this QR code. This is a big one, so I don't think it's in I don't think all the projects are in the packet, so it's like another 45 pages. And I do have to apologize, it's not gonna be, the order I'm gonna present them is not exactly the order they're in the packet, because we have a lot of projects to go through, and I had to organize it a little bit differently. Okay, so this is our schedule, and in red, that's where we're at now. Just last week on the 8th, Greg sent the comments to the TPC for their 15-day review. And today, Valentine's Day, that is us here, we're gonna be asking for your recommendation. Following that, we've got the TPC action set for February 22nd, and after that, there'll be a federal review period for the air quality conformity approval. Okay, so to start us off, we've got Louisville Metro Government. They have a new project. Maybe you've probably heard about it, the one-way to two-way conversion of 2nd and 3rd Streets. This is gonna be between West Cardinal Boulevard and Broadway. It includes many safety improvements, and it's gonna be funded with SS4A dollars. Open to public date is set for 2027. Next up, we have an Oldham County project, 2175. This one's just a clerical change. There's no change to the tip. Right now, the project is in both the tip and MTP, but it has a parent project, and that one's gonna stay in the MTP. This one should have just been in the tip only. There's no change to the actual project at all, though. It's just a clerical thing. Next up, we've got Floyd County Board of Commissioners. We've got the Charlestown Road Complete Street Multi-Use Trail. You might remember us talking about this in Amendment 4. At that stage, we were dividing the project into 2 phases. Well, now we are putting them back together. And yeah, so what we have to do, we rewrote the description, project name, updated the funding, and everything's gonna be under KIPTA ID 2128 now, and we're gonna retire 3047. That one will just be removed from the TIP and MTP, because.
In case you're wondering, big shout out to NDOT finding some funds to let those projects get
Absolutely.
remarried after that rocky divorce.
Definitely, thank you. Next up, we got Clarksville, we got 2 projects. We got the Riverside Drive project. That one is an update to the total estimated project cost and the TIP funding. That one's got an open to public date of 2024, so that's great. And then we also have Progress Way, update to the description and project limits, what's happening there. It's actually gonna be a little bit shorter. The Admore Lane intersection portion is gonna be excluded. And then we do have a Clark County one. This one's another clerical thing as well. This one, it was added during the call for projects, but the sponsor later asked to remove the project, and we're doing that now, a little late in the game. Okay, so the remaining 23 projects are all NDOT projects. So I changed my table a little bit for anyone who's following along for your convenience. I've got the DES numbers on the left side there. And to start off, we've got 3 new projects. Got a I-64 CCTV cameras and dynamic message signs. And this one's gonna be a portion of it in Floyd County, but it extends beyond Floyd County. And then we've got a modernizing Clark County traffic signs, and those are along US 31. And then we have a US 31 project. That one is a sidewalk improvements project. And yeah. So after that, these are all updates to existing projects. KIPTA ID 2487. That one is a US 31 too, but it's a different project. That's getting some TIP funding and phase updates. And I've got 3 around US 150. Kip ID 247 is Old Vincent's Road project. That one was a group project, roadway improvements. It exceeded our threshold, which was $1 million. And so now we have to put that one in the MTP and remove the group ID. Then we have another US 150, KIPT ID 2913, and then also 2965. Those are both getting project total cost and TIP funding updates. And the open to public date is moving out a little bit further for those 2 projects. Next, I have SR 60 at St. Joe Road, West Intersection Improvements. That's updating the TIP funding and the phases. And then SR 111, slide correction. That is a funding and open to public date update. Okay. This next group is all along I-64. Got KIPT ID 2899, I-64 added travel lanes. That one's adding a utilities phase. KIPT ID 2967, SR64. That's the added travel lane project. That one's getting TIP funding and phase changes, and it's moving the open to public out to 2032. And KIPT ID 2943, I-64 at Spring Street intersection modification. That one's getting updates to the funding and phases, and the open to public date is also moving out on that one to 2030. I-64 lighting, that's getting funding and phase updates. And then 3049 and 3050, those are both I-64 bridge deck overlays. They're getting funding and phase updates. And 3192, I-64 hot mix asphalt overlay, that project is getting funding and phase updates. And again, as a reminder, the full project details are in the packet. If you're viewing it now, or if you want to check it out online, there's more information about all these changes in there. So next up, I've got I-64 bridge projects. We've got 4 projects that are getting funding updates. 3 of them, 3152, 3151, and 3149, were initially marked as exempt when we had our IC meeting, the interagency consultation meeting a while back. It led to a discussion, and it was requested that we update these to non-exempt. So the process for doing that, we are going to have to remove the group IDs that they have and add them to the MTP. And I want to point out there's one thing that's different from the packet you all have and what we'll ultimately have. The MTP action box, it just says none because I missed that part, but that'll be different so that we can make that change. They do say that it's being updated to non-exempt in the packet though. 3150 was already non-exempt in both of the documents, so that doesn't apply to that one because that's a new bridge versus a replacement bridge project. Similar, 3153, the I-265 bridge replacement, that's also becoming non-exempt and it's getting funding changes. All those projects are getting funding changes. I might have forgot that part. And then we have 2968 bridge deck overlay on Klerner Lane Bridge. That's getting some TIP funding updates. And finally, I've got 2616 widening of I-65. That one is getting funding updates and they're moving the open to public date out just a year to 2026. Does anyone have any questions, or if anyone from INDOT has anything further they want to add to that? That is the full list. There's no questions. I've got action requested for you all to recommend Amendment 5 approval to the TPC.
Thank you, Chris. Is there any additional questions for Chris on amendment number 5?
I'll offer up this comment. We've put it through the air quality process and both on the VOCs and the NOx, the two things we compare to the ozone precursor budgets, it meets the standards in future years. So good to go there.
Thank you, Andy. Seeing none, I'll entertain the recommendation for approval for amendment 5 to TPC. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you all.
Next item on the agenda is performance management plan annual update. Spencer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. I like that for this one.
Okay,
Okay. But I'm gonna talk about everybody's favorite thing to talk about on Valentine's Day, federal safety performance measures. So we are gonna update our PM1 federal safety performance measure. This is, once again, one of the federally required ones as opposed to one of the KIPTA created ones. You know, this is our annual update. We update this one every February. So I'm sure many people in the room have heard of this one before. This updates the baselines and targets for our safety performance measure in our PMP. I'm going to go over the 2023 crash data that we just got 2 or 3 weeks ago, finalized. We usually wait until mid-January to download the data just to make sure that all of it's in there. It seems like sometimes it takes a couple weeks to capture those, you know, potential and likely December 31st crashes, make sure those all get in there. I'm going to go over the safety baselines and targets, and I'll show you kind of some of the past targets and then our new baseline targets, and then take some questions at the end and request your own recommendation for TPC approval. Alrighty, so quick overview of the crash data for the KIPTA region. Real quick, this is just, you know, a picture of our performance management plan. Kind of like what it is, includes the PM1, which is the safety performance measure that is required to be updated annually. And then the PM2 and PM3, which are on a 4-year performance period. Correct, Andy? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and it also includes our KIPTA developed measures. So these are federally mandated, especially in the way that we must report them. So, you know, many times this kind of brings up the conversation of, especially with the fatality aspect of like, how can this kind of relate to like a Vision Zero type goal? And unfortunately, especially with these, we don't get to choose exactly how we report these. And so, you know, states and NPOs can kind of take different approaches to this. We take the approach where, you know, we kind of go off of the baseline and target setting that they use and just go with that. We do develop our own as opposed to just adopting the state's targets. But, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Also, I'm train of thought there, sorry about that.
Kind of the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that, no, there's nothing I can do there.
Oh, man. Well, I'll just have to read for the people in the room. I think the people online can probably see the bottom line.
Yeah.
Because that's probably one of the most important parts is 2023. So here's just a bar chart showing like the actual numbers for the KIPTA region. So you have the number of fatalities, the fatality rate, and these numbers are shown per 10 billion VMT. The number of serious injuries, the serious injury rate, then we show it on here per 10 billion VMT, and then the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So you can see fatalities, that's usually the one I think everybody kind of hones in on. 1 second.
Sorry, trying to.
Click at the very top, you see it says view.
Oh, yeah, the very top
Far,
right.
far,
corner.
right of it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, for everybody online, we're just trying to, can't see the very bottom on the
Yeah,
presentation, so.
it's just the way you zoom in.
Yeah.
You use, when you use PowerPoint, you can't.
Now I know next time,
Yeah.
I'll keep it from the very bottom line. But, fatalities, you know, this is always the focus area, I think, especially when we talk about safety. You can see, of course, the big increase from 2019 to 2020, and then it kind of stays increased to 2021, 2022, and then 2023 is 178. So as far as I know, that is the highest number of fatalities that we've ever reported since 2005. They've been increasing since at least 2009. But since the pandemic, they have increased a lot more, which is also, you know, duly interesting considering, especially in 2020 and 2021, the VMT decreased a lot, like the biggest VMT decrease in just 1 year we've probably ever seen. With that, the fatality rate has also increased. You can see it actually kind of coming down. So in 2020, it went up to 175 per 10 billion VMT. I will say too, to give a kind of a frame of reference, Louisville's VMT, the vehicle miles traveled, is around 11 billion miles per year. Of course, the majority of that being in Jefferson County, but, so, you know, that's kind of, like, to give an idea, before the pandemic, it was like 10.5 billion. In 2020, it was like, it was 11.5 billion in 2020, it went down to 10.5. In 2021, it went down to 10.4. And right now it's currently about 11 again. So we're getting closer to where we were before the pandemic. So that's why you can see the decrease in fatality rate from 2020, because I think our VMT is helping bring down the rate as it's approaching more normalized levels. Interestingly, the number of serious injuries is actually on a decreasing trend. So where fatalities in 10 years have, like, we were looking at the trend lines, me and Andy and Brady today and yesterday, from like 2009 to like somewhere like 2026, 2027, fatalities will have doubled, but serious injuries will have been cut in half, which is, you know, seems kind of counterintuitive, but so the serious injuries have been going down, even though you can see a spike right there in 2021 and 2022. The longer trend is still going down, and then you can see the serious injury rate, it elevates in like 2020, 2021, and 22, but the VMT also dropped. So as the VMT has been coming back up, it's continuing on that downward trend once again. And then you can see the last column is the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. They have been going up, and they've been going up longer than this table shows. Currently at 142 from 118 in 2019, 119 in 2020. Of those 142, there were 50 fatalities. So of the 142 fatalities and serious injuries, 50 were fatalities. 39 in Jefferson, 6 in Bullitt, 1 in Oldham, and then 1 in Clark, and 3 in Floyd. So here are the serious injuries by county by year. So these are actually, like I said, decreasing overall. Floyd, for the counties that aren't Jefferson, you know, the numbers, of course, are a lot smaller. You can kind of see a little bit of an increase in Bullitt County, but most of the other counties are either staying the same or decreasing. Because you have to think too, VMT in all these years have gone back up. So that first year, the yellow column, that would be like the last pre-pandemic year that's displayed on here. But even with the spikes in like the red bars, the blue bar and the green bar, BMT is in the purple bar has a lot closer to what it was before the pandemic as opposed to after. And those levels stay relatively the same. And then Jefferson County has gone down a lot. Here are the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries by county. So 2019 in the yellow, all the way to 2023 in the purple. Seen increases, region especially, and mainly driven by Jefferson County. The numbers in all the other counties are so low, it's hard to really draw too many inferences from there, but kind of follows the national trend of increasing fatalities and serious injuries for non-motorized users. It's hard to say exactly like as far as if we increase or if there's an increase in the number of non-motorized users, pedestrians and bicyclists, likely to see an increase in these numbers as well, unfortunately. Of course, we want to mitigate that as much as we possibly can, but
one thing we don't have is, I've mentioned this before, we don't have bicycle miles traveled. We don't have reliable pedestrian miles traveled. If we did, we could compare these as a rate also, but we don't have that. And so it's hard, it is a tough thing to gauge. Nobody wants them going up, of course not.
Yeah.
But are they going up faster or slower than the number of people walking, the number of miles people walk, the number of miles people bicycle? Maybe that's a better comparison, maybe not.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we had that, because then we could tell, let's just pretend the number of bicyclists and pedestrians has doubled in this time. Well, that doesn't look so bad.
That's right.
It's not a huge increase, but we can't know 100%. We could look at the rate of people, traveling to work, biking and walking, but we still don't have like the miles that they travel at the distance. All right, and then here are the fatalities by county by year. Of course, you can see that 2019, the yellow, and then the spike in 2020, and it's remained elevated and been still increasing ever since.
Take yellow to the red right there in Jefferson, let's say, and then across the board, it looks like that was the strange phenomenon that we had when we presented this a few years ago. Somehow crashes went down 2019 to 2020. However, fatalities went way up. Fewer crashes, more fatalities.
Yeah, and then the decrease in BMT, the 8 or 9% decrease, and went up. See, there were like I said before, the highest on record, 178 total. Then once again with there's a lot less data for the non-Jefferson counties. There's definitely more in like Bullitt and Clark, where the BMT is probably higher or is higher than Oldham and Floyd, but it still seems like a trend that's been increasing, unfortunately. So here are the baselines and targets. So this is the fatality, like 10-year trend line for the 5-year rolling averages. So last year, the baseline would have been that 2017 to 21. So the baseline would have been 146.6 fatalities. And then the target would have been that 2019 through 23, with the caveat that we didn't know the BMT for 2023, and we didn't know the number of fatalities, of course. So
the number we wouldn't have known for 2022. 23, we only get BMT in the summer following a year, so we don't have 2023 yet, just like last year we did.
Yeah, correct. So we calculate that kind of based on using trend lines as well. So they change a little bit year over year. I think you'll see at the very end of the presentation, the actual target last year for fatalities was 159. So we were at 161.2, still on an increasing trend. Once again, to note our new targets, that 171.2, which is higher than last year, but it is lower than this past year's actual number of fatalities, which is 178. And so an important thing to note is, since these are 5-year rolling averages, you know, we're losing a low year for the baseline. So 2017, there were 124 fatalities. So that one fell off. And then in 2022, it was like 164, 168. So it really raises that 5-year rolling average. And then that's the same thing for the target as well. So 2019 fell off, that was 128, I believe. And for 2024, we just make it equal to 2023, which is 178.
Yeah, that's a change we made, I think last year before last, where this long-term trend line has always been, I say always, for a long time, it's been increasing. And at one point in time, we set the 1 year, these targets are prescribed to us by the Fed. So it's not like we're choosing to do a 2020 to 2024 target, that's what we're required to do. And so that leaves us predicting only 1 year worth of these fatalities, 2024 in this year's case. And so we used to project it on that trend line, on that top trend line, I guess you could say, that represents region-wide. Last year before last, it was the view of either the TTCC or the TPC or both to let's try to do better than that, and let's set the predicted, I guess, fatalities in this case to the amount that happened last year, the last year that was in the record books, 2023. So that's our approach this year as well. Yeah.
Here's the fatality rate, 10-year trend line. This changes, you know, so earlier we showed it for 10 billion VMT to kind of get a better idea of like how many serious injuries and fatalities there were in the region, more likely to be projected. This changes it to 100 million VMT. Kind of the same story. The VMT increasing in the last few years does help keep our baseline target like lower than the increase in the actual fatality numbers. It's the same exact way the previous one is calculated, except that this is divided by 100 million.
And we do assume a modest level of growth in the VMT 2023 over 2024. So there's that.
Your serious injuries. This is where I was talking about earlier that it's actually been decreasing over time. You can see like 2014, 2015, it was around 900. That was the prior 5-year rolling average. And now it's down to 643.5 is our new baseline. 641, where you can see 2019 and 2023 was our actual performance that we have a full set of data for, and then our new target, which includes, you know, the 11 months that we haven't had yet, is 638.4. So this is actually a decreasing target, which is good. Once again, though, it's kind of seems counterintuitive to me that serious injuries have been decreasing at the rate they have been, but injuries have been increasing.
Yes, I think part of that is the doubt that is always the subjective on some level. Completion of a crash report by an officer and how severe an injury is. Yeah, so not every officer is going to report the same injury the same way.
Yeah, fatalities are, you know, that's indisputable. There's no interpretation there. But on the rest of the CADCO scale, A, B, and C, you know, A being most severe and C being the least, besides O being just property damage. You know, it definitely, just depends on their interpretation of how serious it is. So I think I heard this again the other day. I think I've heard this before. You know, just kind of a little thing to note here, stressing to, you know, everyone's police forces, you know, especially all our active members, you know, various police agencies, that the data is used and it is important, you know, for it to be accurate. The location is a really important piece. And then of course, trying to be as accurate as possible on how serious an injury is, you know, it matters. A lot of it's tied to funding, especially like the SS4A stuff. They're really looking at the A, B, and C crashes, especially the A's, those serious injuries. So, you know, it's always important to try to stress to the people out there collecting the data, like, hey, this actually does get used, so you know, make sure that it's as accurate as it can be. All right. Same thing with the serious injury rate. It's decreasing over time, along with serious injuries. Our VMT, you can kind of see it spike a little bit, you know, since the VMT drops in 2020, 2021, and 2022, and we're kind of back on that same trend as before COVID. And then here are the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Those have been increasing, of course. Both, doesn't show it here, but both the serious injuries, unlike the serious injuries with all crashes, the serious injuries with non-motorized users have also been increasing along with fatalities. And here's kind of a summary. So you can see these were last year's baseline targets. And then you can kind of see that middle one, the 2019 and 23 is how we actually performed. So we were a little over on fatalities, 161.2 versus 159. We actually were better on fatality rate. I think a lot of that is the VMT coming back. And then serious injuries and serious injury rate, we were also noticeably better on. And then our non-motorized was a little short of the target there at 125.7. So our new baseline targets are the, you know, highlighted the yellow there, 150.4 for fatalities. That's the baseline, so it's increased over the previous baseline by 4 about. And then the new target is at 171.2. Higher, noticeably higher than, of course, than last year, and higher than what we actually achieved. But, you know, once again, elevated because we're losing, especially on the target, we're losing that 2019 year, which was 124 fatalities, and we're adding on 2024, which is the same as 2023, which was 178. So it really raised that target. But
again, we don't pick the time periods that we have to report. These are prescribed to us. No room for aspirational targets, as we always say.
Yeah.
Unfortunately not. And there's very little good news on the screen, is there, right? You know, it's like, okay, yeah, serious injuries are decreasing, that's good, that's good. But fatalities and the non-motorized are going the wrong way, for sure.
And then, you know, it's not just the Louisville, or, you know, Louisville metropolitan area, you know, keep to thing, it's a national trend. You know, I've been in a lot of meetings lately with NDOT. You know, it's something that across the board, the increases in fatalities, and you know, there's a lot of things coming on the scene to try to tackle it, and hopefully these things will start going in the right direction. I think they will. SS4A will be a big part of that, at least identifying it, you know, and then trying to get some funding for improving fatalities and improving safety for the non-motorized users. So that's all I have with this slide. So any questions?
Yeah, do you compare any of this data to national trends? I heard you say in Indiana, to see if it's comparable.
I mean, I've attended some various like webinars about it. NDOT had a safety summit like 2 weeks ago. You know, I haven't directly compared, at least like the actual numbers, and like done actual data analysis comparison, but
Non-motorized are going up,
but
nationwide.
But yeah, but they're,
Well, for instance, some states have hands-free only, so I think Indiana's gonna do that. Kentucky does it, just to see if there's any correlation in terms of any differences for something like that.
So, for several years from now's version of this presentation, Spencer and I and Mick were at the SS State Streets and Roads for All kickoff the other day, and we were having that conversation of how are we gonna go beyond the number crunching and the outreach of changing behaviors? Can we get something momentum going there? in our region specifically, in our two states that we deal in specifically, what can we do to get the momentum going locally on a local level through some outreach campaign? Possibilities aren't limitless, but it's worth considering doing something different because we see which way these trends are going.
Amanda has a question on
Yeah, and we.
Amanda, you go ahead, you got a question.
Hopefully some of the data reflects some of that too, you know, moving forward, like as those things get adopted, can we look back like, okay, here's when, you know, a cell phone law was adopted. Like now we have 5 years of data showing like, oh, we can actually see a decrease.
So one of the other things that would be interesting is to take was it 171 fatalities last year?
178.
178, and outline where in Jefferson County they occurred, and see if there's a trend on locations, because that should drive some of the highway changes.
Of course, yeah, and so through this SS4A study, again, I hate to say something that's not done yet, and we've crushed numbers in those ways over the years, that KIPTA has and others have as well. But with this SS4A effort, it's going to be the most robust version of any of that analysis that's ever been done in this region. I feel comfortable saying that. It's going to be done in two primary ways. One is the reactive, kind of like you're saying, where these things happen, what can we do to fix those places? Okay. The other that is a more, dare I say, modern way of analyzing crashes is the predictive methods. The predictive methods of saying, hey, how many crashes should be occurring at this place because of the characteristics of the roadway? Is it maybe there's some what we view, you know, naturally as being a low crash spot. That might actually be a high crash spot because of the way what it should in theory be happening based on the lane widths, shoulder widths, you know, guardrail, ADT, the traffic, etc. And so that study is going to get deeper in those weeds as we've ever gotten.
It's, can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a question, but more of a statement. And listen, I have been in your shoes at KIPTA presenting this very topic. I know that the methodology that you are following is mandated by FHWA. So you're just following the rules. I do not fault you all for that. I do not fault this committee if they eventually vote to approve this for that. But I have to say that these rules were created in the FAST Act in 2015, almost a decade ago. And since then, in 2022, the U.S. Department of Transportation published their National Roadway Safety Strategy, in which they came out and said very strongly that 0 is the only acceptable goal for fatalities and serious injuries. So this is really more of a statement at FHWA. And again, like Tanya, it's not against you personally, but just I want to say there's conflicting guidance out there on how we're supposed to talk about safety. And so I implore FHWA to think about the methodology that is required to set these goals, because setting increasing goals is just a statistical exercise, but it doesn't actually improve safety out there in the real world. This exercise that we're doing today is not going to result in actually improving safety out there in the real world. We have programs, we have plans, we have projects that are out there that are doing the real work. So we need to support those. But the statistical exercise, it just doesn't sit right with me philosophically. So I'm going to vote in opposition today simply because of that.
One thing, again, on the Safe Streets and Roads for All, one of the requirements of it, frankly, is to establish or reiterate your local agency's commitment toward those goals that Amanda is mentioning. And so at some point along the way, probably in the next period of months, each and every jurisdiction that's a part of this SS4A journey that we're getting ready to enter on, we're going to have to get that commitment from you to say that we're buying what Amanda is selling and saying needs to be sold. And so I think that's a big step, and that's an important step to show that commitment. It is just words, but at the same time, there's some actions that are going to have to be taken because of those words and those commitments. So that's something to stay tuned for, to say the least.
Thank you, Andy. Is there any other questions for Spencer or Andy?
I guess to some degree, I might need to respond to this. And I think we're all working towards a common goal here of zero. That doesn't change that ultimate goal, but we have to start somewhere. And data is how you start. And seeing trends kind of help you identify issues. And within that data itself, there are other things that can be analyzed relative to that. As we improve our streets and roads, we hope to see these things evolve and reduce over time. Nobody likes to see serious injuries. Nobody likes to see fatalities at all. That's not the goal here. So data is what we're working with, and it is an imperfect thing, but we have to start somewhere. So thank you.
This is an actionable item. I would entertain a motion to recommend the approval of modifications of the performance management annual update to TPC.
Recommend approval, yes.
Yeah. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any further questions? Seeing none, I entertain a motion for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Two.
That's all two.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, number 8, project management guidebook working group. Brady.
Thank you. Okay, so project management guidebook, most of you already know. The PMG outlines the processes and rules, I guess, that this committee uses, that staff uses, that TBC uses to help guide our management of our dedicated funds and how we allocate those things. So if you look in the guidebook, it talks about how the call for projects works. What's the timeline for that? How often do we do call for projects? How do we handle cost increases? How do we handle phase shifts? And some of the rules are different for Kentucky and Indiana. Our most recent version of the project management guidebook was updated in 2022. So it's been a couple of years, and the staff is currently working on a new update of the project management guidebook. In our fall quarterly meeting, we had a survey that we had the attendees to those meetings respond to get an idea of a few things. And since then, staff has been looking at other MPOs to see what some of the best practices are and alternative strategies for project development guidance and things of that nature. And with all that said, we're at a point where we would like to bring some recommendations and ideas and have some further discussion on this project management guidebook update and hopefully come to some conclusions through a TTCC working group. So I would like to first request an action or a motion to form a TTCC working group to discuss the project management guidebook, and if that were to be approved, I have a couple more details to share afterwards.
Thank you, Brady. Is there any questions for Brady about forming the TTCC working group in order to look at the project management guidebook? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to make a recommendation and to approve the creation of the TTC working group.
I'd make that motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? All those signify by saying aye to approve that recommendation.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. No opposition. Motion carries. Thank you, Brady.
And then just a couple updates with that. That meeting will be held on Monday, February 26th, in this room from 2 to 4 p.m. So I've received confirmation from a few people that they would be interested. I have 6 people who have said I would like to be a part of the working group. All of the members of TTCC are welcome to be a part of the working group if you so desire. We don't need to decide that today, but if you're interested, let me know within the next couple of days so we can get an idea of how many people will be a part of the group, but I have 6 people confirmed right now. And it's once again, Monday, February 26th, in this room from 2 to 4 p.m.
My dad, if you can't be there that day and somebody can't attend for you, let's say, reach out to Brady and if you got comments, thoughts, concerns,
Yes.
then we'll be happy to share them to the group.
And I believe we want it just to be an in-person only meeting.
Ideally, yeah, we could manage a Zoom if there's strong desire to do some Zoom stuff, but ideally it would be in person. Yeah, I agree with that.
Is there any other further questions for Brady? Seeing none, thank you, Brady.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is amendment number 6 schedule. Chris?
Another little presentation. So now that we're finishing off amendment 5, get ready for amendment 6. Thanks, Jack. Okay, as a reminder, you guys can submit, any sponsors can submit project update applications at any time. But, the purpose of me talking to you today about this is just to give you the dates to be aware of. Just so when you're worried about timing for your planned project phases, these are the dates that this amendment is targeting. So, and this is a reused presentation, so I'm not gonna go too into it. Right here, this should look familiar to a lot of you. These are the links for the applications. They're located on our website, the transportation planning portal. You'll go in there to the planning portal, select forms, and then go ahead to the very top one. That'll lead you to the expedited or the full project application. And ideally, this is a timeline for amendments, but if you submit something and it ends up being something that we can do through an admin mod, we'll do that. But as a refresher, the amendments take several months to complete due to the various required review periods. And amendments are typically for the more larger changes to regionally significant changes, changes that need public comment periods and approval by TPC. Also for non-exempt ones, but I'll get more into that soon. Those also require IAC meeting and a federal review period after the fact. Per federal requirements and KIPTA policies, the larger projects go through amendments. And like I said earlier, when appropriate, we can make minor updates through admin mods. Usually, if you've never submitted any projects, I'll get back with the submitter and talk about any questions and let you know if it's gonna be in the amendment or if we can go ahead and do it in the admin mod. This is the general amendment processing time. If you add up all of these dates at the longest amount, we're at 4 months or so. And that does not include the federal air quality conformity approval time. So amendments can take quite a while. And this is the schedule that I have proposed. So what I'd like to do a little different this time, we've done it before. I am thinking that it might be, depending on what we get, in our best interest to separate the projects that don't need to go through the air quality analysis and do an exempt only amendment if that's mostly what we get. That way we can get those projects done with an anticipated TPC action of May 23rd. That would be the soonest we could do it. And if we get some project updates that do require the air quality analysis, we'll branch off around April after KIPTA staff reviews everything that we get, and that'll go through a different timeline. And these dates, there are target dates. It might take a little bit longer, but the soonest that we could get to the TPC action, if we do have a non-exempt amendment, would possibly be June 20th. I've got a project application due date for March 15th, so that gives us about a month from today. I would want all of the project updates by then, and then we'll take the time to review and see what we've got, see what we maybe can put in an admin mod, what needs to go through the air quality conformity analysis and what doesn't, and we'll go from there. Does anyone have any questions about these dates or the timeline?
Chime in here a little bit. Chris mentioned this earlier. We take projects at any time, and that's important. I hope everybody knows that. When we put a date like March 15th up here on a schedule like this, please don't wait until March 14th or 15th. If you have your project right now, send it to us right now. If you have a project on March 16th, send it to us then, and it'll be on the next one, okay? Anytime. We're open for business all the time. If you've got any questions about that, please do just ask us. The earlier you submit it, if it's something that there's a back and forth that inevitably happens in projects, that stuff takes time, and so just appreciate everybody just submitting their projects as soon as they possibly can. Let's put it that way.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and that's all I've got. You can always email me if you have any questions or need any assistance with which application or how to get there, anytime. And that's information only, no action requested.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions for Chris? Next item on the agenda is number 10, planning funds call for studies. Brady.
Greg? Call for studies proposed schedule. I'm gonna talk about today for a couple of minutes. Before we get to the schedule, a little reminder of when we talk about our PL funding for KIPTA, this is what we're talking about. So PL funds are used to fund the MPO's operations, and they can also be used to conduct transportation planning studies. So any of the, correct me if I'm wrong here, salaries, things that we need, software that we need access to, all of that stuff is paid with these PL dollars.
Keeping the lights on in this building.
Keeping the lights on, yeah. So all that's paid with these PL dollars. You can see in fiscal year 24, those are the dollar amounts that we had in PL funds, and also FDA section 5303 funds, which for the purposes of this discussion, they're all commingled together. Some of it comes from Indiana, some of it comes from Kentucky. And the dollar amounts that we get are historically based on the population within our census-defined urban boundaries. And these dollars here, just the federal amounts, they require a 80-20 local match. So the 20% for these PL dollars are matched by KIPTA's local dues primarily. QITC for the Kentucky portion also, they fund 5%, whereas the matches 15% of the local match for the Kentucky portion of these dollars. But I say all that just to give context to, in the past, if there is funding that we either choose to be made available for planning studies, or we didn't have enough match through the KIPTA dues to match all of the federal funds we receive, we made some of that money available in the past for LPAs for a planning study. And so last year, $250,000 was made available through the fiscal year 2024 UPWP Unified Planning Work Program. And 2 projects were awarded funds using that money. The number here for fiscal year 25, we don't know it yet. Andy's currently working on the fiscal year 25 UPWP. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll have a number to propose to have a call for planning studies that we can use that money for.
For conversation purposes, we should assume it's probably in the same ballpark as last year.
And then also as a note, a reminder that this call for studies money that we're talking about, it has to be locally matched by the LPA or whoever receives it, 20% as well. So the $250,000 last year federal, and then it had to be matched at least 20%. Okay, and here is the proposed schedule. Andy's currently working on identifying what that exact number will be, and we'll find that out here in February. The call for studies application, which is at the same place Chris just showed you, where you do all your most of your other applications in the transportation planning portal. You'll find it in a link there. It will be open and available March 1st. And then on March 13th, which is TTCC for March, staff will present some additional details regarding the call for studies and answer any questions that you have. Talk about our priorities for project selection and things like that at that time. Some of those details will also be found in the application. You'll see some details of that when you open the link. We'll have some information there regarding the studies call. The application window closes April 1st, so you have from March 1st to April 1st to get your application in. And then over the next couple of weeks, staff will analyze and select projects based on those things that we'll discuss March 13th with you and what's on the application. And then the announcement of the awarded projects will be announced at April TPC on April 25th. And then we're hoping to have the agency contracts in place by July 1st. That will give you a full year to get the project completed, because you're using fiscal year 25 dollars if you are granted any of this money, and it's supposed to be the study has to be completed by the end of fiscal year 25, June 30th.
If somebody has a study that was, let's say, so large that couldn't get it done in a year, or it was too expensive, couldn't afford it in a year, there's no guarantees whatsoever, of course, but one could say, hey, we would like to commit, could we commit $25 and $26? It'd be hard to commit $26 as far in advance, of course it would, but there could be room for that. We've done a little bit of that in the past to be able to bite off something larger, but if, I expect this to be a pretty competitive process, I would suggest, I would suppose. Again, we should have those numbers, how much we have. We won't know, technically, we probably won't know officially until the end of this year, because a lot of it has to do with the carryover money, the money we can carry over in Indiana. We'll have a better estimate of that in the next few weeks, but we won't have a firm estimate until the end of the year. We won't wait till the end of the year, of course, to decide, but at the same time, we'll have a pretty good estimate in here by maybe as soon as TPC here next week. The reason we'll know more next week at TPC is because I will have on the agenda the submittal of the draft UPWP, and that document in essence requires some estimate of this.
And that's all I have, unless anyone, this is just informational, but if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Brady. Is there any other questions for Brady? No. Thank you, Brady.
Thank you.
Next item is other business. Andy, do you have any other business?
Just two quick things. One I had noted was the thing I just said, the draft Unified Planning Work Program for fiscal 25 will be presented to TPC next week. It's due to our state and federal partners by the end of the month. The draft it is. The final is not due until the end of April. Another, I guess, preview of something that will be on next week's TPC agenda that may be of interest to some of the agencies in here, maybe all of you, especially Kentucky ones. Has to do with our Every Commute Counts regional rideshare program. That program gets funded through these STBG funds in both Kentucky and Indiana. That program has fewer vans in operation than we did pre-pandemic for certain. But what's happened is the dollars that have been awarded to that program by the TPC, they're more than we need right now, frankly, to be candid. And so we're going to propose that we cut those funds by about, I think about a quarter, about 10, 20, 25%. What that does and why that's important, that throws money back into that STBG pot to handle cost increases or otherwise. So that's important to everybody. And so we'll be throwing some money back in the pot soon with TPC approval, I suppose. But I don't see any reason not for them not to approve that. We've got plenty of money to operate that program. And we just want to be accountable and responsible and friends and share that money with everybody else. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Andy. Any other business? Being none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this committee. Motion. There is a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No opposition. Great. Meeting stands adjourned.
All right.